chance and then you blew it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back. Yes, episode 163 episodes. That's a lot. Anyway, without further ado, I'm your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Callie, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., 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 and all the way from Granite City Studios in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Paul Vold, Shield. What's going on there, Shield?
Well, hopefully with episode 163 tonight, we do not disappoint like the Twins have in the past in a game 163 situation. But hoping that we have bigger and brighter things to look forward to. Because I know that we've got a lot of things coming up here tonight that we need to get to. And obviously some good things for some of our zoners out there.
Well, the good news, Voldy, is that we've brought back somebody that we need to talk to, especially after that Vikings game. And this game literally coming up tomorrow. So a lot going on with that. So we welcome back Mikey Orion back to the show. Mikey, it was a rough one, but you know what? That's why we brought you here to talk about it. So what are we thinking, man?
It was a rough one. I thought the defense played pretty well. I was kind of shocked about that. I liked Brian Flores. I liked his not gunslinger, but aggressive approach to playing defense. A lot of cover zero from what I saw, which was interesting, and it worked. But you got to limit the turnovers, and as Curve Doctor always says, that O-line.
That's very true. And he was harping on that a little bit too after talking with him. But we'll get more into it because I do want to bring up as well. Pick'em started off really great. Zoners. So claps out to you for making your picks, and make sure you make your picks, obviously, for this week. And it was a good week. I mean, Zach Huntley is at the top, and guess who else is at the top? Ryan Coom is back again up at top, but Voldy's not too far behind. Molly Vold's not too far behind as well. So check out the leaderboard, see where you're at, and we'll go from there. So make sure you take a look at that, and don't forget that to set it up, get your picks in. It was a fun week one. So here we go on to week two, and with week two, Voldy, I think it's time to do a sticker for this week. So
I think
that means if you the zoners get first place this week, you're getting a sticker. You are getting a very nice sticker from MinneZona Sports Live. We will send it to you happily. Like, look at that one. Oh, and it's a brand spanking new one, by the way, as well.
Beautiful.
So make sure you put that in. Or if you just want to say, you know what, I'll just pay for one and just go from there, then, hey,
Guaranteed.
We'll do it for you. So stamp of approval all around. So get your picks in, all that fun stuff. All right, so
also too, Matt.
Yes.
Let's throw out there as well. If you do better than me this week with the pick'em, I'm going to throw in a Shield shout.
Ooh, now we're talking.
Incentive to get the picks in, people. You could win 2 stickers this week.
You get 2 stickers. Like I wouldn't complain about that one bit. I know that the zoners don't, but 2 is always fun. So. All right.
Exactly.
Without further ado, let's just get right into it with some Tater Tot Hot Take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, it is time for some Tater Tot Hot Take, and the first thing that we're going to go over, obviously with Mike here with us, is the Vikings game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 20-17 loss. Kirk Cousins, 3 turnovers in the game. I'd probably say 2 of them would probably you'd put pin on him. The other one was kind of a freak thing, and we'll talk about that in a second too. Before we give our thoughts, I want to throw this out to the zoners. What were your thoughts on the game? Do you think that the Vikings should have tried something out? What should they have done in order to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And obviously, there's a lot more that has festered here as the week has gone on. But so far, our Vikings are 0-1 to start the season. We all kind of marked this one up as a win. Unfortunately, that was not the case. There's just a lot of mistakes. And you're not going to win many games in this league if you make that many mistakes, if it's either penalties, turnovers, things like that. Mikey, what are your... you kind of gave your thoughts at the beginning here, but give me your thoughts on the way that the offense played, under Kirk. Obviously we couldn't move the ball. Jordan Addison had his first touchdown, so claps out to him. Overall, there were things that Kirk needed to fix, but we all know that there were some things that we could have done either defensively, offensively well. So what was your biggest weakness what was the biggest weakness that you saw, Mikey, in the game on Sunday?
So I think the biggest weakness, it's no stranger to Minnesota faithful, it's the offensive line, like bar none, I think. Did Kirk make mistakes? Yes, especially I think not only with turnovers. He seemed kind of hesitant at some spots,
Sure.
especially on the one interception towards the goal line. I think he was trying to hit KJ and it got intercepted. He just hesitated a little bit on that throw. But it's got to be the offensive line. Ed Ingram, like the punch-out ball on Kirk, that's like a freak thing. I don't think we're too worried about that. But he seems to be at the center of a lot of these weird situations where, like, Ed Ingram was stepping on Kirk's foot last year.
Yeah.
Ed Ingram punches out the ball yesterday. And he's been suspect at that guard position. And now that Bradbury's out, and I think he's out for this upcoming game tomorrow as well. Slotman, I can't say his name right, but Slotman, thank you. But he's also been suspect. So it's like that interior offensive line is I think one of the biggest weaknesses we have on this team. And I don't think anybody is like arguing against that, but we have to find a way either internally or externally to figure out how to repair that situation, because if we can't keep Kirk upright, we're going to lose every game.
Right. And we talked about this too. I feel like you were on here when we talked about this, the Netflix thing with the ribs and everything like that with Kirk. And we don't want to have another season where he's beat up and fighting through that. Now, he's a very gutsy guy, and, Kirk's that type of guy, just to be like fight through things. And you see why he plays each week and, how good he can be. But you're going up against a really good defense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, they still have guys from, their Super Bowl days and whatnot. But, obviously, that Baker, as long as you don't make a lot of mistakes, there was no way that Baker was going to come back if Kirk didn't force that throw or threw it incomplete and things like that. So, again, zoners, let us know your thoughts as well. But, Voldy, let me ask you this. Besides the offensive line, what was kind of a glaring need or weakness that you saw watching the game on Sunday?
Well, I wish I could honestly give a good opinion and analysis on the game itself, but I didn't even get to watch the game. I was working on Sunday. So, the only
there's
thing
that.
I really noticed from some of the updates as well, because of the fact that, obviously I got to pay the bills around here, but nonetheless, just looking at it from purely from a numbers standpoint, it wasn't a bad game for Kirk. Yes, you can see the 2 lost fumbles there. 33 for 44. He was throwing the ball all over the place there. JJ went for 150, 344 yards and 2 touchdowns. But again, an interception, 2 lost fumbles as well. You got to be able to protect the football. And on the other side, too, you get Baker Mayfield going for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. That team really just capitalized on what came their way, honestly. And there were a lot of instances where the Vikings, it wasn't so much that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that game, it's that the Vikings lost that game. Yes. Is what I would say about that.
And let's not forget, too, that there really wasn't a good... I mean, Kirk was slinging it. Don't get me wrong. You had the 1 interception and whatnot. But Easy makes a good point, too, saying we needed more run, good mix of run and pass, keep them guessing. Classic theory also controlled the tempo. And, I feel like there were some errors that either wide receiver wouldn't make, or, I feel like him and KJ, there was a connection somewhat when they were going at first. But at the same time, I kind of look at how JJ played that first half. I mean, he was bar none, the best player on the field at that point. Oh, yeah. And it just kind of fizzled a little bit because I feel like the Bucs, when they got the ball in the second half, their first drive, they went down there in it was a long drive. It was a 9-minute whatever drive. And, it was something that, kept the offense off the field. And when they were on the field, that they didn't take advantage of some of those things. Obviously, Alexander Madison played okay. He only had, 30-some rushing yards, 40-some, or whatever it is. So, that's, you want to see that go up a little bit against the Eagles. But, again, the Eagles are very good. Have a very good front four. But, I'll kind of cap it off by saying this. And, I kind of want your thoughts on this too, guys. But Ingram's a problem. It's just that the interior line is a problem, and I am so baffled, especially with our new regime, that we haven't addressed this. And I know that they kind of sort of brought in a little bit of Dalton Reisner, but they didn't act on it. They didn't sign him. They felt like, well, Ed's going to play well. Ed Ingram had the lowest pass blocking rating in the game. It was 40.1, while everyone that was up 80s, 70s, whatever it was. So that's a huge problem. And so you almost think they're going to get Reisner after they play the Eagles here on Thursday. I just don't see it, and especially, I don't know if you saw it on the social medias, but he was at an airport. We don't know if it was the Vikings that called him to bring it in or if he's going somewhere else, but the Vikings have to address this because we're thinking of ways for Kirk to, protect. No. Ingram is a problem. Fix it. And Bradbury, he can't stay healthy. I'm sorry. We keep trying to defend the guy, but he can't stay obviously he had the crash, and when you have back problems, they linger and things like that. So, Schlotman, he's okay. He's not awful, right? But I mean, once you agree, they have to address this glaring need now more than ever, or else we're not going anywhere. Mikey, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I brought it up. I think everyone's brought it up for, the last 7-8 years at this point, is we have to fix it. Do I think they're going to get Reisner? I would love for them to get Reisner. I think that would be a perfect fit right into that right guard spot. You just plug and play. Maybe by week 4, you might have to give him a week to get situated into the playbook. But it's the perfect fit. You have to bring him in. If we keep Ingram, I think it's going to be such a detriment that we're going to lose games because of how the offensive line plays. And it's certainly not the fault of the tackles. I think Darisaw and O'Neal are playing good, if not great. Ezra Cleveland's out there. He's kind of like the lone guy, in the left guard spot. That's he's all right. He's there. We don't have any issues with him specifically. But when you see all the pressure coming up the middle, he gets wrapped into this conversation, right?
Right.
But you have to fix the problem at right guard. The center problem we can deal with. Bradbury's injury issues, I think we have to deal with in the offseason probably at this point.
Yeah.
But Reisner's there. Just bring him in. It'll fix the problem, hopefully. It's never a guarantee. But
Right.
he's certainly better than what Ingram is, because you could throw a 12th grader out there at this point. It'll be just as fine.
Well, there you go. So with that being said, obviously that's the glaring need. Voldy, let me ask you this. So we kind of saw. I know that you getting that bread, getting that dough on Sunday, and whatnot. But like Mikey said at the beginning, the defense looked pretty good. Caleb Evans was pretty spot on.
Good.
Let's address what Baker said, that he figured out what they were doing and whatnot. But the reality of the situation, they only scored 10 points off of off him reading the defense and whatnot. So far, I feel like Flo's done a good job, and obviously he's going to have something ready for the Eagles too. But you got to like what you see so far with the defense, right, Voldy?
Yeah, I think so as well. And if Baker was as good of a quarterback as he says he is, and getting these signals too, he would have thrown for 175 yards in the third quarter alone, let alone through the entire game. And he would have put up 4 touchdowns in the second half. But no, he only threw for, obviously, the 173 in the game, had those 2 touchdowns, and a lot of it came down to miscues by the Vikings that ultimately led to that win for Tampa Bay. But, you got to like as well, because especially, I'm sure early on with this new system defensively, that they're trying to probably keep things simple enough for some of these younger guys, and obviously new guys to the system as well, that they can get the call in from the sideline on the fly as well, and understand kind of the basic principles of each play, and obviously each set that they're going to be going into as well, which for guys that have been in the league long enough could probably pick those up on the offensive side to exploit. But with Baker Mayfield, again, the fact that he only went up for 173 yards through the entire game speaks to the fact that, well, he probably knew, but he didn't capitalize on that, and, well, probably shot himself more times in the foot than actually doing anything with it down the field.
So another thing to be brought up about this, too, is that he said that I think it was Rashad White or whoever it was, the running back, said that, so that I couldn't believe what he's, and then he said, it's funny. He goes, I'm a Texas Rangers fan, not a, Houston Astros fan. So we got, allegedly. That was good. I'll give him that. Yeah, I'll give him that. But again, this was something to where he's a game manager now. He's not the guy that's going to come back and bring your team to a win. He's a game manager.
He's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick of this generation of quarterbacks. He's going to be in the league.
That's pretty good.
15,
I like that
20
take.
years. He's not going to light up the scoreboard. He's going to get the job done one way or another. And I've always kind of, obviously you would have thought in Cleveland that, getting them to the playoffs, getting a playoff win, that would have steered things in the right direction. But then he goes to LA, basically wins a game last minute, going off of being with the team for 30 seconds basically, and leads them to a win on a Thursday night or whatever. That doesn't work out. Now he's in Tampa, and he's basically proving himself all over again, and you're seeing the dividends of that. He could very well be the Ryan Fitzpatrick of this generation of quarterbacks, I think.
I don't disagree with that one bit. So then another thing too, I forgot to bring up, the Jay Ward lining up in the neutral zone on the field goal was the big swing I feel in this game. Obviously, Chase McLaughlin kicks the field goal for them to go up 13-10. Then we get flagged for, that's just, you can't have those mistakes. And Jay Ward has to realize that when, welcome to the NFL, but it costs. We go down from being 13-10. All right, Kirk gets us in field goal position, or a touchdown here, no problem. But that completely just kind of made things a little bit tougher for Minnesota. So,
Yep.
That's another blunder that we just can't have. And going into this game against the Eagles, there is no way that they will win if they commit those types of turnovers that we did against the Bucks, bad penalties, things like that. But previewing this game real quick, the Vikings have done pretty doggone well after losing, a game that, you thought that they wouldn't win or they get killed or something. Like, they bounce back. I think there was like they're 10-0 after they haven't had back-to-back losses in a while. So, Mikey, with this game coming up, I mean, do you give the Vikings a little bit of a chance here that they could possibly beat the Philadelphia Eagles? What do you got?
I give them more than a little bit of a chance. I think we have a decent shot at beating this team. Does everything have to go right for us? Of course it does, right?
Right.
It's still the Philadelphia Eagles. They went to the Super Bowl last year. They're still an excellent team, even with all of their injuries that they currently have. I think like 4 or 5 guys are out for them currently.
Yeah.
But this team has always been good with adversity, like especially last year. Like all those one-score games. I know this is a new team. Like every year is different, but some of that does carry over, especially after like a one-year head coach. He's going to pull back on some of those experiences and bring them into this game. And I think that watching that Eagles and Patriots game kind of gave you a blueprint of not how to stop this team, but how to slow it down. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to slow them down enough, and we're going to have to capitalize on those slowdowns to actually beat this team.
And I like the way that you brought that up because it's you have the talent. The talent's there. The defense, obviously, you saw the improvement that it had. But I'll redirect the question to Voldy here, too. Do you give them pretty much a shot to beat the Eagles? What do you think?
I mean, there's always a chance, too, because, it's something about the regular season, especially if you do it early enough in the year compared to, unfortunately, last year with that game on Monday night. Just didn't go the Vikings' way there. If you keep the ball out of their hands, offensively, defensively, you don't turn over the football, you find ways to get Jalen Hurts off the field, the Vikings have a very good chance in that matter. The injuries will certainly help as well. But when it comes to Philly, there are literally only 2 outcomes. You either get blown out 35-0, or you find a way to win last second 35-32 in a last second field goal. And for Vikings fans, there's only really one way to make it through this game in one piece, and that is not very sober. So I'm just going to refresh that there real quick, because by the end of it, this is going to be a stressful one way or another. If they win, if they lose, one way or another. It's probably not going to remember it Friday morning. Probably a lot of people calling it sick Friday morning, we'll certainly say. But again, talking about if the O-line can keep the defensive line of the Eagles away from Kirk, again, they still have a very legitimate chance. They've got some studs on that D-line there. Of course, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox is questionable as well. The Eagles have always had a good D-line over the last, 10, 15 years. Offensive line, we know that is the most consistent thing in the NFL for them, is that offensive line. So, for the Eagles, I should say. But the Vikings do protect and allow Kirk that time as well. And if Kirk is smart with the ball, of course, they have a chance to win that one coming up here tomorrow night.
Well, I'm pretty pumped up, and obviously, lose, you drink, win, you drink, all that stuff. So, we got that going for us.
As Johnny Manziel said, win or lose, we booze.
Yeah, exactly.
Might have burned this one, too, here a little strong, but that's all right.
Well, it is what it is. Alex A., our good guy, who you'll love this one, Voldy. There's only one guy who can truly unlock the Vikings defense. Cole Munson.
No.
See?
Straight cash, homie.
Sorry, Munson, but the only way that I think Cole could do that if he could get Ricky Rubio on the team. That's the only way I can see that coming. But anyway, Skull Zone. Thanks for tuning in. Vikings by 10.
I like it.
I like it. I don't hate it.
That.
I think it's I think
Definitely.
I think with the offense that you have, I mean, Jordan. Let's not forget, Jordan Addison had a great, coming out party. He was he got open. He looked good. His route running is just it's just so precise. It's like, you're watching JJ and things like that. But I mean, I like it. I don't hate it as much.
If we can just get him to drive the speed limit, we'll be fine.
Yeah, there's that. There is that. But I'm glad that he kind of went down that route and he went fast on that play. We're good. We're good there.
Yeah, he did.
Easy says, versus the Eagles, we need ball control and to keep it out of the Eagles' hands as long as possible because the Eagles can score at any point. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift, who's going to be in there. Kenneth Gainwell's out. Yeah. Boston Scott's a pretty good back. So there's a lot of weapons. Dallas Goedert, don't forget him. They're going to...
Jalen Hurts himself.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's that good, and I think that's a good thing to know that our defense has been playing pretty well. And Skull Zone says our run D was good last week. I couldn't agree more. You looked at the way Hicks played. Our guy Ivan Pace Jr. had a couple tackles, and he was in there more than Brian Asamoah. If you were watching the game closely, so I mean, we like what we're seeing with Ivan Pace.
Yep.
Mekhi Blackman had a pass breakup. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about here. Nick Dahlhoff, shout out to Nick Dahlhoff, Popcorn Bucket List, and Rhino. The Vikings are kind of like a 5-year-old child. They always want to do the opposite of what you say. Last week we were supposed to win, we lost. This week we were supposed to lose, ... and he kind of left it at that.
It's going to be that kind of season, I feel like. We're going to have a lot of trap games, and we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot a lot, but these games, it's like, there's no way we're going to win. We're going to win. So it could very well be like that.
Okay. Skull Zone says, Eagles struggled versus a bad Patriots team. We're going to smash. Hulk smash, hopefully. Mikey, you say... Yeah, Mikey, you say Viking win tomorrow?
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with Voldy. I think it's going to be close, but I think it's going to be a little more low scoring than 35-32. I think that was your score. I'm going to go 24-21. Vikings win.
Right. Okay, and then Voldy you're going with the 35-32?
I mean, I'll adjust. Sidebar here. What, Mikey? You said 24-21 there. Yep,
I did.
Okay, so I'll do 21-17 there. I'll just feel like, it'll be hard to come by. There are going to be a lot of goofs on the field since it's still early, so I'll do 21-17 Vikings.
I'm going to be a homer here, and I know that, it's tough, but I think they're going to win. I think it's going to be close for one, but I also know that Kirk's going to be raring to go. JJ especially. You saw how mad he was after that loss on Sunday. He's going to come back with a vengeance. And I feel like he remembers what happened last year when we played the Eagles, Monday Night Football. Yeah. Darius Slay, had those picks against him. He's going to want to fix that, and I feel like they're going to find ways to get him open, Addison, and I feel like KJ. Don't forget TJ. We got all the TJs, we got the CJ, we got everything going on with those guys as well. Real question, though, says Alex A. If the Vikings offer a first-round pick for Kirk Cousins, do the Vikings pull the trigger? No. That's all I got to say. Yes? Is that what are we...
I think we need a little more.
Yeah, a little more than that.
Right.
More, like, everybody hates on Kirk and looking forward to what's coming. Like, what do you have right now with the Vikings that says we can move on from Kirk Cousins? This is the first thing I always think about and want to rebuttal against somebody. It's like, we need to get Kirk out of there. It's like, okay, who's going to play quarterback then? You got a good one? We tried with Sean Mannion. We tried with Kellen Mond. We tried with everybody. It doesn't work. You got Kirk Cousins, and literally, what else you got? There's nothing that the Vikings have any better sitting on that bench right now minus Case Keenum coming back to the team. God, please let that happen one day.
The Keenum
But
keepers.
barring that, yes, exactly, for the keepers, hashtag. But there's nothing that the Vikings have right now that says, yeah, we can move on from Kirk Cousins at this point. I'm just sick and tired of all the Kirk hate when it comes to that.
Well, I'm not going to get too far into Kirk hate just because we're going to be here all night. But, no. But, no, I like it. But, Skull Zone, TJ Hawkinson's going to go off, baby. No way the Eagles blitz as much and leave TJ one-on-one, especially in the red zone. I feel like he's going to be lethal. If we get Kirk bang, we'd be like the Washington woke since Kirk left D.C. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Kirko no chill.
Kirko no, hashtag Kirko no chill. We should trademark that for our show. That was great Vikings talk, but there's also another big game going on in the great state of Minnesota. Or actually, I think it is at North Carolina. But the Gophers, the Golden Gophers, take on the Tar Heels. They're ranked 20th. Drake May's a very good quarterback, but the Gophers do have a very good defense. So Voldy, going into this game, Gophers 2-0, very good, very nice game against Nebraska. Played pretty well towards the end there, and then they take on Eastern Michigan, take care of business. Do you think the Gophers can pull off an upset? Are we thinking that they can do it? What do you think, Voldy?
I think they certainly do. Like I said, we've talked about the Gophers a few times here already. They're going to have to rely on their defense to win some of these games, too. Like, yeah, obviously last week, the offense came to show against Eastern Michigan and some of that action as well against Eastern Michigan. But you're taking on a 20th ranked team and especially a high quarterback draft prospect in Drake May as well. That's certainly been turning a few heads the last season and a half here for the Tar Heels. They're a team that's got a lot of momentum right now, a lot of talk in the offseason about how this Carolina team is something to look at here with the ACC. But then you got the Gophers coming to town. The defense has been looking fairly impressive here. Obviously, the first 2 weeks of the season, the game against Nebraska, they made stops when they needed to get the ball back, to allow their offense to move the ball downfield. And you see now that, the offense last week start to put some things together here. If the Gophers defense can get the ball to their offense and hold Drake May accountable and especially maybe get him moving out of the pocket and maybe make some errant throws, I think the Gophers have a very good chance of pulling off the upset here coming up on Saturday.
Then I feel like this would help. There's a lot of Fleck believers, there's a lot of Fleck non-believers. And I almost feel like if the Gophers are able to solidify or, get this upset win against a very good team in North Carolina, I feel like some of those some of those Fleck haters will kind of take a step back and be like, well, I think they might be onto something here. Joe Rossi, I feel like the defensive coordinator for the Golden Gophers will have a plan ready. My question is, what are they going to do offensively? Mikey, I asked this of you real quick. Since the Gophers the running game is okay. You lose Mo Ibrahim, and now you're kind of you're working with some guys, and there's some guys that got some talent there, but Kyrieirving is a pretty good passer, and I feel like if the Gophers are able to move the ball with the passing game, they'll be in good shape. But don't you think that the running game going up against this good of a team, and they went into overtime against Appalachian State. Let's not forget that. What do you think? I mean, do you think the passing game will be effective, especially with the weapons you have in Span Ford and then Daniel Jackson as well? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that if they are to win this game, it has to be effective, right? Whether it is going to be or not depends on Kaliakmanis's progression, right? We've seen that the Nebraska game, he was kind of suspect, especially on the early goings, and then during Eastern Michigan, he was starting to get his groove. I think this might be his breakout game. I know PJ Flex thinks very highly of Kaliakmanis as like a good quarterback and one of the best quarterbacks that Minnesota Gophers have seen since Adam Weber would be my guess.
Adam Weber. That's a name. Yeah.
That is a name. That's a throwback.
Yeah.
Maybe a call to the hall sometime. But I think you do have to get the running game going. I think it's got to be a balanced attack, and the Gophers have this kind of uncanny ability to play up to their competition, but also play extremely down to their competition, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it time and time again. We've lost, Bowling Green last year, but we beat Penn State. We beat Penn State when they were ranked number 5. So I think they can play up to their competition for this one. I think it's going to be a good game. PJ Fleck always keeps it competitive, at least, right?
Yeah.
But it's really going to be predicated on Kyrieirving and how well he can do, because we know the defense will be fine. Stopping Drake May is going to be a tremendous challenge. I'm not saying that it's not going to be, but to win, Kyrieirving has to play exceptional.
I couldn't agree more. Defensively, I agree. I think this is going to be one of their toughest tasks that they have. But let's look at the schedule after this game. You're probably going to beat Northwestern. Good Lord. I mean, with the things going on there, they're probably going to beat Louisiana. Again, could be a trap game. You never know. But after that one, you take on number 2 Michigan, and all of a sudden that game, 2 unbeatens going against each other, and I think Harbaugh is going to be back that game as well. So it'll be interesting. I mean, it won't be easy. Let's be honest, but if they lose to UNC, it is what it is. I mean, they have some work to do, and Alec Manis is young. A lot of these running backs that they have are young, but you do have a lot of weapons in the wide receiver room. Ottman Bell's starting to come back a little bit too, so you add him to the mix, they're in good shape. So roll the boat, Skyuma, go Gophers. That's going to do it for Tater Tot Hot Take this week. Mikey, thank you for joining us. Skull Vikes.
Let's go.
Let's get this done, and let's get this back on the right track, because after this game, they got to take on Chargers.
It's a tough road.
Chargers, the Panthers, the Chiefs. I mean, there's really not. The Carolina game, I bet they should take care of business.
Yes, they should take care of business there.
Yeah, but you never know. But Mikey, thank you for joining us, and we'll be talking as the game goes on tomorrow. So.
Oh yeah.
We'll do it.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
You know what? Good luck and pick 'em, and we'll go from there.
Oh, I'll need it after last week.
Later, man.
Right, see ya.
All right, so that was a really good Tater Tot Hot Take this week, and I didn't do the rundown. I feel like I was forgetting something, but we're so involved in our conversation. This week we are doing top 10 infamous lists. The past 2 times we have done Hall of Shame because we had to get our inductees in there. Our current inductees consist of Infamous Jameis, obviously,
of course,
Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, and Dan Snyder, who have been immortalized in the Hall of Shame. But now we're just going to get you our updated list, and, there's a lot of changes. There are a lot of changes, so there's a lot to unpack here. But, Voldy, let's just get it going. Let's get it going with the top 10 infamous list.
Here's the list no one wants to be on. Infamous Top 10.
All right, it is time for the top 10 infamous list. Voldy, it's been a while.
It has.
We've added some people. We've moved people up. We've taken some people out. We're going to do something a little different, though, tonight. And I feel like this might work out better just because I don't have to do that much work with it. And there you go. If you guys can see it okay, I can also make it bigger, but you just let me know if you guys can't see it. But we're more than happy to go over it with you. But Voldy, I'll let you do the honors first tonight with your list, and then we will do mine. So Go ahead.
Yeah, since the last time we did this, had to take a few names off the list and really think about a couple of things that really just not mesh all that well with everything that is the Shield. Of course, we'll start off in the 10 spot. Got to keep them on the list just by the pure absurdity that it is. YouTube TV. Yes, it's still the main streaming service that I do use to watch all my TV shows beyond, of course, regular sports as well. I got to have my MasterChef. I got to have my 90 Day Fiance. I got to have my When Calls the Heart. Don't at me. Those are great television shows. But I can't watch the Twins. Can't watch the Wild, can't watch the Timberwolves if there's literally nothing else on TV. Watch the Vikings, of course, because we're in that national media market as well. But YouTube TV, still finding a way to screw it up there and not allowing me to watch that beyond just the national games of the week. Up to the number 9 spot, a guy that's really kind of just made himself relevant, but for the wrong reasons going into the start of the NFL season, it's Stefondiggs. You know, we unceremoniously, between, of course, the Vikings and also Stefondiggs, parting ways a few years ago. He goes to Buffalo, hasn't skipped a beat there. But literally since the end of last season, going into the fall with training camp, and then now going into week 2 now of the NFL season, Stefondiggs is now starting to turn into Antonio Brown for all the wrong reasons as well. Slowly turning into, I don't want to say a locker room cancer, but he's certainly not a benign tumor right now. It's starting to fester a little bit here with Stefondiggs. And for those that did follow me on social media, of course, with him trying to lock in with, of course, Josh Allen as well, saying that him and Allen are on the same page. Sure, they might be on the same page when the cameras are on them, but probably in the back of his mind and in the locker room, Stefondiggs wants nothing to do with it. He wants the football. He wants everybody to get out of the way. That's why Stefondiggs now up to the number 9 spot. Exactly. Zim said it best there. But up to the number 8 spot. This is a team that I cannot stand for the life of me. It is the Tampa Bay Rays, who play in the worst stadium in Major League Baseball. They are the worst franchise that ever set foot on a Major League Baseball field since the beginning of time. 120 game losing seasons as well. God-awful team. Stockpile all these draft picks and all these prospects. Oh, yeah, let's make it to the World Series just randomly one year and almost win it. Couple years, you go another 15 years, couple of bad seasons. Stockpiling more draft picks. Oh, yeah, COVID season. Let's make another World Series just completely randomly. Bad season after that. Just finding ways to beat teams and stay relevant in a very crowded AL East division as well. Find ways to make the postseason. Hey, let's get this one guy on our team, this top prospect shortstop who's trolling for dates, not on Tinder, but at a middle school playground right now with Wander Franco. Still finding a way to win with these scrubs from other teams that are just complete garbage, and yet they keep winning. I hate it. I hate everything that is the Tampa Bay Rays, and I want them to go away. I want them to move to Montreal so bad, so maybe then I could start rooting for them. But no, they're still there. They are still a team. That's why the Tampa Bay Rays are at the number 8 spot. In my mind, they are number 1 in my mind, but more on that coming up. We move up to the 7th spot with robmanfred, who just continues to befool himself as well. Yes, he's made a couple of things happen his way. Obviously, with the pitch clock implementation, things have been moving along well in that direction. The A's moving to Las Vegas, not a good move in my mind. And it's unfortunate because of the fact that the A's ownership is really just tanking so that they can move the team to a better franchise and make more money. Robmanfred's a joke of a commissioner as of right now. Number 6, DeshaunWatson. I don't think we really need to say much more beyond the fact that hopefully things are going well in Cleveland outside of the massage parlor from that matter. Number 5, with the NFL media. NFL media will never give Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings, any credit for anything except for losing and how bad they lose against certain teams as well. And if they do win, they'll talk about how bad the other team lost and how did you let the Vikings beat you? Oh, woe is me. NFL media just needs to be quiet in that regard. Up to the number 4 spot, we got Jamorant. Jamorant, really just not smart. Not smart in many directions. With his body, with his social media use, with him holding a fire. Why do you need a gun in the first place? There's people you can hire to protect you. Why do you need to be posting on Instagram Live with a gun and then get caught and then you get suspended? Then you're going to lose money. Then you're not going to play. Then you're not going to have fans to begin with. And all these fans that spent money to see you are not going to see you play. Then you lose favor of that. Jamorant, stop being so stupid. Up to the number 3 spot, Urbanmeyer. Those that have watched Swamp Kings on the Netflix as well saw that documentary. I watched it too. It was fantastic. They left out a lot, apparently, to a lot of people. I don't understand why Urbanmeyer is still getting paid for money as well for all the crap he's done behind the scenes. His NFL coaching career that didn't even last a whole season, trying to, basically be kind of a dictator to grown men when he couldn't do that anymore to college-age kids as well and try to play mind games with them. If you saw the documentary and how he just basically was running this military operation in Florida at the University of Florida that did pay dividends in 6 years, 2 national championships, countless wins, countless draft picks as well. Big revitalization of the program. And then he, goes to Ohio, steps down, I should say, goes to Ohio State, wins the national championship, although all the stuff off the field ultimately led him leaving, and then ends up coaching the NFL. Urbanmeyer, completely ridiculous. That's why he's at the number 3 spot. Now we go to Antoniobrown. We know everything that went on when he was in Pittsburgh. Then he goes to Vegas. He can't use the same helmet. Then ends up getting released by the team. Goes to New England for literally a week, catches a touchdown, released the next week. Then he ends up just kind of sitting around waiting for Tom Brady to call. Oh, yeah, let's go win a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay there, Antoniobrown. Okay, cool. Let's next season quit at halftime, before halftime, middle of a game, middle of a play against the New York Jets. Then somehow through all of that, he ends up recording a rap album. Then he's now a owner of a indoor football league team, and yet is defrauding that team and all of its players, not paying its players up in upstate New York. Antoniobrown is like turning into the Kanye West of the NFL right now, of sports as well. Bad thing is, those guys are hanging out to each other, so they're just getting dumber by proxy in that regard. Now we're up to the number 1 spot with the top 10 and famous list here with the Shield. It's the Big 10 conference. Soon it's going to be the Big 18 conference as this rate. You add USC, you add UCLA. Now you're going to be adding all sorts of teams with the Pac-12 dissolving. The Big 12 is now up to like 37 teams at this point. You span from coast to coast with the Big 10 conference, which strictly used to be Midwest, a little bit of the eastern side of the Midwest as well. Now you're adding all of that into it as well, giving the classic matchups of what everybody wants to see on a Saturday afternoon. Who doesn't want to see classic Big 10 football? USC against Rutgers in New Jersey. Fantastic. That's what I'm really looking forward to with Big 10 football. Forget your Michigan, Ohio State. Forget your, Ohio State and, obviously the Michigan-Ohio State game is the big one. Iowa, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan as well. Nobody wants to see that. We want to see UCLA take on Nebraska. Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. The Big 10 conference is a joke of a conference. Still a mid-major conference with a $1 billion budget now at this point. It's all money grab. Big 10 conference is at the top of my top 10 and famous list.
Well, Voldy, I hate to throw this out here for you, but at the same time, apparently someone who's been tuning in here, Doug, does really not like the Patriots. Patriots. POV, losing blood is wearing a Pats shirt. Pats. 0-1. Loss. Your team couldn't get a toe tap. Well, that's true. He only did what, but we got that going. Your blood effed your savior of a franchise QB's wife. I doubt that.
Dang, blood. Man, you got me effed up.
Doug's really teeing off on it. He really does not like the Patriots.
Yeah,
but
Doug guy is out for it tonight.
He is out for it tonight. But we appreciate you tuning in, and obviously, no, there's no way Clowntonio did that, because Clowntonio says stuff just to, get attention. I feel like's the best way to put it. But dang, man, you're really teeing off on the Patriots. But Skull Vikes, I don't know. Let us know.
Clown to know a clown, Doug.
let us know. Let us know what your team is. I'm just curious, to be honest with you.
Up.
All right. So anyway, great list, Voldy. YouTube TV, I feel like it will be immortalized in the Hall of Shame at some point, but we'll kind of go from there. Here's my list. Number 10, Greg Williams. There's really not much. I feel like we should kind of just. I separated, actually, to be honest with you. I separated Greg Williams and Sean Payton because there's been a lot of Sean Payton talk as of late. And he's been doing a lot of this. We'll get to him in a second. But Greg Williams, I feel like we'll probably get him into the Hall of Shame sooner rather than later. But that's got to happen. Number 9, Kyrieirving. He's gone down the list. Obviously, I don't feel like we've seen much from Kyrie since then. But I also do know, too, that things could change. So there's a lot going on with Kyrie, and I feel like... he's kind of toned it down somewhat a little bit, so we got that going for us. Another name on this list, Deshaun Watson. You really haven't heard much. He didn't really have the greatest game against the Cincinnati Bengals, but they did win 24-3. But I feel like defensively they just dominated, and he didn't have to do too much. But props out to Kevin Stefanski. We like Kevin. So, number 7, Dillonbrooks. And I feel like he should have been on this list a little bit earlier because of what transpired this past year, saying that the Grizzlies were a dynasty when they haven't won Jack you-know-what yet. And then all of a sudden not re-signing with the team, burning all these bridges, saying, I don't respect anyone unless they put 40 on me. It's saying that to LeBron. Look, dude, you're trying to be the next Draymond. You're not Draymond Green. I debated on putting Draymond on here because I still think he's still doing the antics as per usual, but, it is what it is. So, yeah, he's 7. And then, obviously, his teammate, jamorant. You haven't heard much. Obviously, he does have the suspension coming up here as the season starts. Dude just doesn't get it. And that's the only thing I can put at, and obviously he's gone down a little bit. Oh shoot, I did not realize this, but I have Urbanmeyer twice. I did not notice that. But hey, you know what? We're gonna roll with it because I think let's do this. The Jags Urbanmeyer number 5.
Yep.
Let's do that. Obviously, I feel like it's still fresh in everybody's mind of how things went with Urbanmeyer. But, I see him on Fox Sports and, him being an analysis for college football. It's like, yep, that's where you belong, buddy. So enjoy your time there. Number 4, I added this one. I feel like I should have added this a little bit sooner. Jairealexander.
Yep.
We all know the deal with Jairealexander, Zoners, Voldy. He likes to talk a lot of smack, especially about this guy, Justin Jefferson. But he's just all talk, and I almost feel like he's the football version of Dillonbrooks. Really hasn't proven too much. People automatically think he's a shutdown corner. He got into a scuffle with the Bears with hitting Justin Fields, even though he was in bounds, so I understand that. But, obviously he knows how to make a rise out of people, and, I feel like until some guys finally kind of start burning him, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson coming up here, hopefully, he hasn't proven anything. So I'm not going to put respect on his name until he actually does something. Number 3, Antonio-Brown. Voldy put it nice and simple. Literally burned a team to the ground. And it wasn't by... here's the thing. It's just because he's just so out of sorts. Let's just go with that. Let's go with that instead. Out of sorts with Antonio-Brown. You know the deal with him. You all know the antics that he's pushed. He claims that he doesn't have CTE, but we damn well know that he probably does. And he should, go. He's people saying I do, and then he says that he doesn't. He does it. Whatever. He's at number 3. He probably will be immortalized at some point, but he's still going, so there's plenty of space. Number 2, Sean Payton. Isn't it interesting, Voldy, that Sean Payton has worked his way back up the list, and he's been able to, say some things that he shouldn't have said with Nathaniel Hackett, saying that Russell's he's acting like, stop kissing babies and, things like that. Stop worrying about your image, which, I feel like there is some truth to that. But at the same time, you looked at that game against, who did they play again? I can't remember. Who was it? Was it Vegas? No, Vegas played somebody else. I can't. But anyway, they lost. Yep. They lost. So I don't like what I see from the Broncos so far. And Sean Payton, right. People are like, wait, why is Sean Payton acting like this? He's always acted like this. Have you not been watching what he's been saying? I mean, seriously. He's always done this. If you're a Vikings fan or any other, you know this. He is a jackass. It's that simple. Yes. Speaking of more jackass, number 1, Urban Meyer. And why do I have Urban Meyer so far up? And Voldy, you mentioned it, that the Swamp Kings, which to an extent, I mean, there were some good things. They forgot a lot of details. They didn't even talk about Cam Newton. And there's some guys that Cam probably
Newton, Aaron
don't.
Hernandez, Riley Cooper, the Pouncey twins. They had a whole starting offense and defense that they didn't talk about with that group.
So you have that factored in. This was a see, Urban's not a bad guy piece. I mean, he is so concerned about his image that he fails to realize that people have called him out as a fraud. And the whole, like, they worked, they're like, it was military-like practices and they really worked at it and things like that. It's just, you're lucky to have guys like that wanted to work like that. Some guys, weren't about it, but yeah, you did want to win, and obviously they did win. But at the same time, we know what you are, Urban Meyer. And the fact is that you're a fraud. And at some point, you will be immortalized in this Hall of Shame. But I want Urban Meyer to remember one thing. When you made that jump to the NFL, you were literally the worst NFL head coach I feel like anyone has ever seen. And the fact that you did this stuff off the field and things like that, and look at what Doug Peterson's doing right now with this team, with the talent that they have, their defense has gotten better, their offense looks great. You're probably the worst NFL coach of all time. I mean, I'm just going to say it right now. It's that simple. You are probably the worst NFL coach of all time. Sean Payton's even better than you just because, well, Sean Payton actually does somewhat know football, but he chooses to cheat. So that's another point there. So anyway, that's going to do it for Top 10 and Famous List. Again, we will take submissions whenever you guys want to do it. If you guys want to make your own list, if you think that we should add some people to this list, please let us know. We're happy to add more on and or consider more guys as well. So let us know. This is our list, and we will keep it up to date. Hall of Shame, probably at some point we'll keep going here, but we'll keep you posted. All right. Anyway, with that being said, there's a lot to talk about. ARA, especially the big news coming out of New York with one, Aaronrodgers, a.k.a. Aaronrodgers, but we'll get to that in a second. NBA not doing the whole load management thing. The NFL's PA saying we don't like the turf, we don't like this, we don't like that. Just a whole slew of things. So let's just get right into it. It's time for some absurd or approved.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for Absurd or Approved. So, Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
Well, for those that were tuning in Monday night to see the debut of Aaron Rodgers playing for Gang Green in the New York Jets, you only saw him for 4 plays, unfortunately, before his season came to an end, unfortunately, with what is being reported by an MRI earlier this week, I should say, as of yesterday, a torn Achilles, just 4 plays into his season with the New York Jets. And with that also taking place, the hopes of the Jets maybe making the playoffs, maybe doing something even beyond that, quickly dwindled with Zach Wilson taking over at that point as well. On a play where he got rolled up on and unfortunately dealing with the calf issue in preseason and in training camp, and now also with the torn Achilles. We'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers after this season as well, going into, of course, next season too. But Zach Wilson's quarterback number 1 once again, and that brings up the question as well. Is it absurd or approved that the Jets will be able to compete with their talent despite the Rodgers injury for the rest of this season?
Well, here's one thing I want to, bring up before. If you follow the socials medias, which all of you do, I said, if you've watched Hard Knocks, if you've watched that whole spiel with Aaron Rodgers, because I still like saying it because it's fun,
yep.
And it's not really a knock, to be honest with you, but he's not a Packer anymore. You have a little less hate, and obviously there's some things that he did, and you see in his episodes, and he's just kind of a normal guy, which you can appreciate. This is awful. This is like
weird, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is awful. Like there no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If I were a Jets fan, I'd just be like, I mean, all the hype, everything, just everything and anything with it, gone now because we expected him to be, the savior, be the guy that when he said that Super Bowl III trophy's getting a little lonely, and now they're not able to do that. It's a terrible injury, and obviously I wouldn't wish it on even shoot my worst enemy, because this was their lifeline. Now let's get to the question at hand here, and there's been a lot of talk about whether or not that Zach Wilson should be the guy, and yes, they've looked at some veteran presence to be behind him in case things go awry, which I think you have to be prepared for that. But I also think too that you got to give the kid a chance again, and with Zach Wilson at the helm and learning with Aaron Rodgers, if you watch the Hard Knocks, he was learning from Rodgers. There were things that he was, showing him and saying, you can do this one. So has he made those strides? Kind of, because he did really have a bad interception that Monday night.
He did, yeah.
But it really lessens their chances. I'm going to say that because, I mean, defensively, they're solid, man. I mean, you have Sauce Gardner. You have Quinnen Williams, who is just tearing it up, getting sacks, especially at the defensive tackle position. Like, that's amazing. And it's I think they're going to compete. And then here's what I'm going to say. They're probably a playoff team. You look at this team, you say, okay, yeah, a little bit of play. I can see playoffs here. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I also think that, there's one glaring weakness, and it is, unfortunately, the quarterback position. You have the running backs. You have the wide receivers. You have a defense. So, I mean, there's a lot to be positive with. But as long as Zach Wilson doesn't lose them games, and obviously, what a win against the Bills. I do give them credit, though. I mean, that's a team that, you don't know what the hell's going on right now with that team. No, so I'd say they'll compete, but they won't compete for a Super Bowl. That's all I got to say with that. But I want to give Jets fans and whoever is an Aaron Rodgers fans some hope. He's not going out like this. There is no earthly way that he's going out like that. So he'll be back. He'll be back. So I'd say stamp of approval. I think they'll compete. They just won't compete for a Super Bowl. Right. So, Voldy, what do you think?
I hate to say it, but the NFL is good with Aaron Rodgers playing.
Sure.
Whether he's good, whether he's bad, he's still good for the game as well. He's one of those recognizable faces of the league as well. And for him to go down 4 plays into a debut in, obviously a home game, Monday night, brand new team, that sucks. It really does. And it's unfortunate that it happened that way. Obviously the whole torn Achilles, like you said, I wouldn't wish it against my worst enemy as well, except for this Doug guy who's just throwing shots at me. Maybe I'll wish it on him just for the sake of maybe throwing shots right back at him. I feel like with Zach Wilson, and I saw it with Hard Knocks too, it just looked like he was actually happy to be there. Last couple seasons, obviously, it's been very turbulent. He was drafted to be the guy. Zach Wilson was to be quarterback number 1 and take this team into a new leap. And if he got drafted anywhere besides the New York Jets, I feel like he would be still very good. He'd be a very quality quarterback right now. Would I say he'd be top 5? No, but he would definitely get this team some wins. It's unfortunate they got drafted by the Jets, and the media scrutiny is just coming after him day after day. But going into this camp, knowing that he didn't have all the pressure to be perfect and to be the guy, you actually started to see him be a lot more comfortable. He played pretty well during the preseason when he started some games too. He did enough in that game on Monday to get the job done. The defense got stops when they needed to.
Yep.
Buffalo coughed up the ball a few times. Buffalo decided to kick the ball in overtime on that punt, which ended up being the game-winning touchdown on the punt return as well. Zach Wilson, if he can be a game-managing quarterback in this sense, get the ball, obviously the running game, Breece Hall coming back was a godsend in that game as well, because obviously first play he goes 26 yards, and this is coming off major ACL surgery. Him, Michael Carter, Dalvin Cook. If Zach Wilson can give them the ball while also being able to work the ball to Garrett Wilson, to obviously to friend of the program Gronklin and Tyler Conklin as well.
Alan Lazard.
Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb as well, and some of these younger receivers they got. They can be very competitive. I don't say that they're going to be, obviously top in the division, but they're going to be a thorn in the side of the league this season. I agree with that. If they do get in the playoffs, it's going to come down the last 3 weeks of the season. Everything's going to have to go right for them. They're going to win when they need to. They're going to be a thorn in the side of the league here this season.
I do agree with that, and I think the big reason why you have the front 7, you have the linebackers. Mosley's still a top linebacker in this league.
Absolutely.
And Sauce. Sauce and Diggs are going at it, and he can hang with the best of them. So
they are a very deep team on the front 7, which is scary. If you've got backups that could be number 1s in other teams, that is going to be great for you, especially as you get in the last handful of weeks of the season, because of the fact a lot of these guys get nicks and bruises. They're going to be limping in as well. But if you can go to your backup and he can be a number 1 for you, I think this team could definitely be very competitive down the stretch.
I think right now you feel like the Dolphins are almost the strongest team in the division compared to Buffalo. Well, with Buffalo...
Buffalo shot themselves in the foot.
Right.
Do I see it as being a consistent thing? I don't know.
Right. So. And that's kind of the big thing here, is that there's just, with the way that they played against, the Chargers, which again, Chargers going to Charger, but they'll give Miami a run for their money a little bit. And that's because they have the guys to do that. Now, covering Tyreek Hill is a problem in itself, but the Bills, it's not as easy as you think, and obviously you never count out Belichick and the Patriots.
No.
We'll see. I mean, you feel for Jets fans, and he'll be back. That's all I got to say. He'll be back. So, all right, next one, Voldy.
Well, coming off, especially with the Rodgers injury as well, on an artificial turf surface, this brings up the NFL Players Association and obviously their call for NFL franchises and stadiums to move away from artificial surfaces to natural grass, which would ultimately lead to less injuries, especially with the ACLs and the Achilles injuries as well. And unfortunately, this is going to be obviously another situation that continues to rise as well with this debate between the artificial and the natural turf surfaces, or the natural grass versus the artificial turf surfaces as well. And conversations continue to arise in that one as well. But it obviously, in this instance, it's going to be a money over common sense situation too. So do you think it is absurd or approved that should grass fields be more strongly considered after the Aaron Rodgers injury?
Well, I know with Roger Goodell being on First Take, was it today or yesterday or whatever it was? It was today.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Mm-hmm. I agree with him, and I hate to say this. Sorry, Dave Portnoy, but it's very complex. There are guys that like the turf. There are guys that don't like the turf. So there's a lot of that going on. But I almost feel like, maybe do a survey. Do a survey with all the players and whatnot, and whatever wins, go with that, and go from there. But you go with turf, you play a lot faster, things like that. But the downside is there's going to be injuries and things like that. And I feel like you see that uptick with that. But I also know too that with natural grass, and I'm no expert on this. Don't get me wrong, but there are some teams that definitely keep up with that. But there are some teams that don't, and we all know who we're talking about. But again, you're under that whole regime with Dan Snyder, and I'm telling you that Washington, that field is terrible, and we all know it. Joe Burrow's torn his ACL there. A guy named Adrian Peterson, Robert Griffin III, you name it. I mean, it keeps
Young.
Stacking. Alex Smith
almost died on the field, man.
Yeah, are the teams going to keep up with it? They better enforce that rule, because, careers have ended. Luckily, APs and Joe Burrow and guys have turned, but some guys like RG3 never really was the same after that. So Alex Smith, yeah. Yep. So, I say do the survey. I don't know the science behind it. I agree that they should really look into it, and I think Goodell's saying we're going to go with the science, see how things go with that. But let's not forget the Super Bowl. Was that artificial turf or was that natural grass? Is that
was natural grass? Yep.
See, now we got a big issue here, because the guys that don't like it. So I say do a survey, and if
then
the
you
science
also saw with obviously 2 Super Bowls ago with the Rams.
Yes.
tore his ACL on a turf field.
Right. So to answer your question though, Voldy, and I think you should consider it. Yes. See the science, do the survey, go from there. Have enough to be like, okay, we're fully moving over to this, or we're moving over to that, so we'll see. But I'd say stamp of approval. I think you got to strongly consider it, see where things are at. So, Voldy, what do you think?
At the end of the day, this comes down to dollars and cents. That's CENTS, not common sense in this one. Because at the end of the day, ownership groups are going to have to pay for a complete overhaul for these fields that do have turf surfaces over a natural grass as well. Are you going to say that the Will family is going to pay for an all-natural grass surface at US Bank Stadium? I don't know. It very well could happen. but it really comes down to, I don't know really where this would come from. If the NFL has to tell the owners that, hey, you need to have a grass field as opposed to turf, or if the owners have to say, hey, we're going to switch to grass here, like all the owners all the owners that do have their teams, we're switching to a grass surface and just letting the NFL, because it's one of those where it's like, does it have to come from the very top, or do all the owners have to make this conscientious decision that's saying we're switching from artificial turf to natural grass because we're losing more players, and obviously the injuries are starting to rack up too. In another instance as well here, and especially a guy who has benefited and been dealing with injuries, is David Bakhtiari from the Packers as well, talking about how the artificial turf has been a big detractor in his career as well, especially as of late. He's been dealing with injuries the last few seasons and too, basically pointing out that that soccer players are getting much bigger treatment because that with the U.S., North America, I should say, hosting the World Cup coming up here very soon, that they have to remove of the stadiums that are hosting in North America that have the field turf. They're going to have to remove that for a natural grass surface, pointing out that they care more about soccer players than those that are actually playing on the fields day in and day out on a regular basis, where guys have been continue to get hurt. I think it definitely needs to be considered more because more and more significant injuries are happening.
Sure.
Would it take the Rodgers injury for them to take a much more serious look and say, like, hey, we need to really nail this down here before it gets even worse, before some of our even best players get hurt too? It provides that cushion over the grass, or I should say over the turf as well, compared to the turf as well. I think it definitely needs to be considered. It's got my stamp of approval.
Let me add with one thing though. You mentioned David Bakhtiari. I feel like ever since he started, he's always had injury problems. Like I don't mean, yeah, like there's, I mean, yeah, I can see why he'd be upset about that, and talk about how it is with that. But at the same time, the guy gets hurt like almost every season. Like you always see him on the. Oh, is he going to be back? Is he a very good player? Yes, he is. He just can't stay on the field, I feel like, with David Bakhtiari. But that, it's neither here nor there. All right, next one, Voldy.
So we're switching to the NBA, and one thing that's been on the minds of a lot of players and a lot of fans this last couple seasons has been load management. And the NBA is expected to really nail that down a lot more, really kind of put the clamps on it as well, with more strict rules and punishment to limit the resting of star players for nationally televised and in-season tournament games, and instances of multiple all-stars sitting out individual regular season games. Now, they're talking about, obviously, the draw of star players coming to certain venues or certain games and cities that maybe they don't visit all that time, and just so happens to be, oh, he's actually not playing this game, and, really, messes with the fans' ability to see their favorite player, or the ability to see some of these players play in cities that they don't visit too often. As NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has determined to increase player participation, and the league's goal is to strengthen the initial player resting policies that were adapted during the 2017-18 season to help, guys obviously get a night off or two and ultimately play more games. But they're saying that the new rules that mandates players to participate in 65 regular season games, I think it's 65 of 82 regular season games, in order to be eligible for postseason awards as well. Now, the NBA is also defining a star player as someone who made the All-Star or All-Star or All-NBA teams in any of the past 3 seasons, too. So there will be even financial punishments to go on top of this as well, because we all know with load management, especially if, like the Lakers are going to go to Charlotte or whatever, and, LeBron's been playing the last 7 or 8 games, maybe LeBron gets a night off. Well, those fans in Charlotte that are Laker fans won't get to see LeBron play, and it really dupes them out of it as well. But is it absurd or approved with these rules coming into effect? Quite possibly, if they haven't already been passed. Should the NBA be tougher on the resting of these players for the betterment of the league?
Yes, they should. And here's why I'm in favor of them putting this rule on, is because, like you mentioned, people that want to see LeBron play. They might be a fan of LeBron in Charlotte, like you said. Like it's the same thing in Minnesota with like, let's just say Steph Curry coming, obviously they come to the Target Center, play the Wolves. But I like this because I feel like you've heard guys like, obviously, Sir Charles Barkley, Shaq, a ton of these other guys that said, I played all 82 games, obviously injuries happen. And yes, if you need to rest someone, if it's because of a, ankle and things like that, but there are parameters, which I do like. There's an example that they put on here. The NBA will allow pre-approved designated back-to-back allowances for players who are 35 years old on opening night or have career workloads of 300. Wow, that's a lot of minutes. I mean, over 34,000 regular season minutes, 1,000 regular season playoff games combined, and things like that. So there's exceptions, which I'm glad that they're doing that. So it's not just like no load management. So you can't rest 2-star players. Let's just say if the Wolves were like, no, we're gonna rest Ant and Cat, and whatnot. No, you can't do that. Because the whole resting thing, and yes, I know you don't want to have injuries happen and things like that, but I mean, you're getting paid a lot of money to play, right? And I'm not trying to knock guys like LeBron, who's done this long time and things like that. But you look at Kobe Bryant. I mean, he's usually playing. He's usually playing, all the games. Same with Shaq. Same with those guys. Mm-hmm. So I feel like a lot of these guys have kind of gotten soft. I hate to say it, and it's. I obviously I'm not a pro athlete or anything like that, but I listen to the guys that have been, and we kind of go from there. And injuries, yes, they do happen, and resting players, okay, that's fine, but there's just a fine line, I feel like, and sometimes they cross it, sometimes they put too much. So there's a fine line. That's what I'll put it as. But I also know that this whole situation is jump started by guys that are like, I don't feel like save me for the playoffs and things like this. You're playing for seeding too, so I mean, you gotta actually give a damn. So yeah, I stamp approval. Right. I think they should be hard on teams on this. So, Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely got my stamp of approval because there's been a lot of talk about this the last couple seasons, especially with some of these older guys that have been in the league for so long. You definitely need a night off every once in a while, but especially for a lot of these teams that are coming to cities that they haven't been to, or you only visit once or twice a year at the most. You get the Boston Celtics going to Oklahoma City, or they go to Portland or whatever. There's not a lot of opportunities for that to happen. You get those Celtics fans that are in the certain cities as well that are don't get to see their team play, or even some of the stars as well that won't play. Then what the point was wasting your money at buying that ticket if you aren't going to see the best players play as well? I think it also comes down to the ability for the NBA to say, look, if the best players are going to play, fans are going to come out. They're going to buy the tickets. They're going to, buy the merch as well. They're going to come out and support their team. So for some of these guys to not play, it's ultimately going to be like, well, I know he's not playing, so why would I even go to the game? I can just watch it on TV or get an update later. It's ultimately another situation where money's coming into effect as well. And I love the fact that the NBA is like, look, you're either going to play or you're going to lose money on this situation too. So you better play. And if you don't play, then you're not going to be, all NBA, or you're not going to be eligible for the MVP or something like that. Exactly. That's also another big factor that I like that the NBA took with this one too. It's got my stamp of approval.
You don't play, you pay a fine. That's all. That's all you got to put it as. So, I'm glad that they're being tough on it. So, all right, next one, Voldy.
So we're taking a quick trip to the NHL. That's basically saying that, another opportunity for Atlanta to have a hockey franchise would be much better than the two previous times that a team was hosted in the